dedicated to each and every one of you who appreciate a great glass of wine. You know what I mean?
It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or saber a bottle. And let's begin exploring the wine glass. Today, we return to an Allure of the Poor episode. I sat down with Gonzalo Bertelsen, head winemaker for Viñedos Veramonte in Chile. This past Saturday was Earth Day, and I hope everyone listening raised the glass and did one extra thing to help preserve our little planet. Veramonte is all in when it comes to protecting the environment. The beautiful design on their labels represents the living soils that are a result of their 100% organic and sustainable farming. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Did you know you can do it right there while you're listening? New ratings and reviews are how the algorithms decide which podcast they recommend to others, and if you love the podcast, other wine lovers will too. Don't forget to add your email address on the website to keep up with all things exploring the wine glass. Slancha! Hey everybody, I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, Spanish wine scholar, sommelier service, champagne and Côte d'Aron specialist, and a WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials, as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to swipe, subscribe, rate, and review. Stay in the know about all things wine by visiting my website, exploringthewineglass.com. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Allure of the Poor. Today, I am sitting down with a head winemaker for Viñedos Veramonte, Gonzalo Bertelsen. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks, Lori, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here with you and share what we do here in Viñedos Veramonte in Chile, the Casablanca appellation, especially for this special day, Earth Day. Really important for us.
Yeah, so we are recording this right before Earth Day. So Earth Day is April 22nd. And it's been around since, I think, 1970 is the first year that it came about. And I think I read that somewhere like 20 million people, marched in harmony in order to show that we need to protect this earth. And, Veramonte is so much involved into this, and we just thought that it was a perfect time to talk about your wines and to talk about how we can help promote this Earth Day and protect the one planet that we live on. So I want to first get into knowing a bit more about you. I read about you, and I can pretty much say that wine is in your blood. You grew up in a family of winemakers. So tell us about your childhood around wine, and did you ever want to do anything else?
No, yes. Well, I grew up in a small city closer to Casablanca. Since I was a child, I always saw my mother, my grandparents, my father having wine on the table. So for me, wine was something natural, we had it. I didn't because I was a child, but my dad, he's still alive. He still has a glass of wine every day. He's 82. He turns 82 this year. So grapes and wine was always in my family, and from both sides of my family, dad and mom, I had winemakers in the family. I never met them. But they were there, on the Sunday lunch conversation. We always talk about them. And my dad and my grandfather had a cellar in the house as well. Not a big one, but they kept their wines. And so I grew up in a family that wine was part of the daily life.
Right.
And it was that. No one in my family today is related to wine except by me at this time which is something really special, because when I talk to my dad or my grandfather or some aunts or uncles, they kind of like that I came back to this nice and lovely profession, that is making wine and selling the wines and growing grapes. So it's really inspiring for me to be, I don't know, to do this. And and I always liked the earth, and when I was a child, I wanted to be a gardener. I because I like plants, and then I decided that if I studied agronomy and viticulture, it would be better for my future instead of So I did that, and I love wines as well, but I always liked some other kind of cultivars, like flowers or trees or whatever. But since I started studying in university, I realized that grapes, viticulture, and making wine was something that I really liked. I had it, in my blood, I guess, and I studied. I did my specialty in enology and viticulture, and I started working in a few wineries in Chile back in 1997. And after 9 years working as a winemaker, I decided that I wanted to have a small break, but at the same time, I wanted to study and get some more knowledge. And at that time of my life, I was very much influenced by some Australian viticulturists and Australian winemakers. And Australia was doing really well at that time, at the end of the 90s, I had some friends there, and so I went to Adelaide to study in Australia, to study a Masters of Enology. I moved there with my wife. We had just married a few months ago. And so we spent a couple of years in Australia learning and working. And we had really, really much fun over there. And I still remember those years as probably some of the best years of my life, Going back to school, I met a lot of young and new winemakers, a lot of researchers as well. And they have a different philosophy than the ones that I had here before. In Chile, when I studied in university, we had a lot of influence from the French teachers, French winemakers, French terroirs. And at that time in Australia, it was because the Australian wine industry was based in people that believed a lot in chemistry, so it has a lot of like chemistry approach, and less blah blah, less and more facts.
More science versus the terroir and art.
Yes, that was the Australian approach, which is good, a lot of research, and today I guess my view is something in between, of course the first lessons that I learned from this French influence, my own experience in Chile and Argentina as well, and everything that I studied in Australia as well. So that's it, that's what I do, that's what I believe, and that's how we make wines here in Veramonte today.
So returning back to when you were in school in Chile, it says you were accepted into the Association of Enologists and Agronomists. What is that an association, or is that like the title of what you graduated with?
I studied in one of the best agronomy and enology schools in Chile. It's called it's the Catholic University. It's a big university in Santiago. But then at the end of my university years, I do my specialty in viticulture and enology. But the university in Chile doesn't get you the enologist degree. So in terms of getting this degree, you need to apply, and then you need to give a test. And after you approve, you get your like enology degree,
Okay.
winemaker's degree in Chile, and you are accepted, in the association. But it's not something that you have to do, because you can still make wines and be a winemaker in Chile legally, but you're not part of this association. So it's if I don't have this enology degree given by this association, it doesn't really matter, But I guess it's always good to get your first jobs,
Right.
Another degree, another recognition to your work.
Right. Well, I think that that's one of the main things about winemakers in general is you can do all of the book knowledge that you can, for like us, we can go to UC Davis or Fresno State or Cal Poly or whatever, and you can ace every test there is that they provide for you. And then each time you go into the vineyard, vintage after vintage, it's a completely new ball game, right? Because Mother Nature has changed things that obviously everything can't be in a book. So there's book knowledge, and then there's vineyard knowledge, I should say.
Of course, yes. Yeah, that's of course the practical thing, the being in the vineyards and have some studies complements all your experience, So I think we need both.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then to gain your hands-on knowledge, I mean, you've traveled extensively. You've been to Bordeaux, Languedoc, Campo de Borja, McLaren. You were here in Napa, in California. So do you, when you travel and you work at each of these regions, are you like storing things in your brain of, I like this, I don't like this, this works with this, but this doesn't work with this? Like,
yeah, of course. At the beginning, I just wanted to eat the world, to travel and work and make a lot of experience everywhere that I could. My first vintages overseas were in France. I guess according to this French connection that we had in the past, in Chile. And then I started working, and I worked in Napa. Then a lot of work in Australia as well, in Spain. And then I worked for 13 years in Mendoza, in Argentina, before I came back to Chile to work for Veramonte. So every place has, different styles, different terroir, different soils, different technology as well, a different culture. And it's a very, very nice thing to be able to go there and work and absorb all that knowledge, and I think we need to keep doing it, we need to keep traveling and working and tasting. Today is easier because I guess the world is more connected, and it's easier to take a plane, and probably, I guess, cheaper than it was in the past. And also we have a lot of imported wines everywhere, a few years ago in Chile, you just had Chilean wine,
right?
And not wines from overseas. And I guess in United States it's the same. Today when you go in a wine shop, you can see wines from all over the world, in small wine shops, large supermarket chains. So it's easier to taste each part of the world in a wine glass.
Absolutely. You can try, if you can't physically travel, you can travel through the wine glass.
Yes.
Okay. So let's bring it back to this beautiful holiday that we have, Earth Day. So again, Earth Day is April 22nd. And, I think Veramonte is kind of at the forefront of leading the cause for helping to preserve the planet. So when was Viñedos Veramonte founded, and what was the goal at that time, and how do you see the trajectory of what the goal is going forward?
Yes, Veramonte was founded at the end of the decade of 2000, in 1996 was we started to build the winery and was finished by 1998 here in Casablanca appellation. That was like a new discovery. It wasn't discovered by us, by Veramonte, but the first plantings were done a few years before by famous viticultures that planted the first vines here in Veramonte, in Casablanca appellation. So we planted a few years later. At the beginning was a big vineyard that is getting a little bit reduced right now. So the vineyards have more than 20, I would say 25, 26 years old at this time. And at the beginning was a conventional vineyard, you know, with use of agrochemicals, like many of the vineyards in Chile at that time. But within the years, Agustín Uneus, that was the previous owner. Today, Veramonte belongs to a Spanish group called González Villas. The owners, they make a lot of cherry in Jerez, in Spain. So today it's owned 100% by González Villas. Around 2004, 2008, the company started to think in moving from conventional viticulture to a more organic cultivation, you know. So it was around 2008 that was finally that decision was taken, and today, this, of course, you don't do everything at the same time. You go step by step. There is a transition, and then you start working a few blocks every year, a few varietals. And today, at this harvest, 2023, we are 100% organic certified, and all the grape production also is 100% biodynamic certified. You know, so but for us the most important more than the biodynamic techniques is the organic approach. We care about the soils. We give a lot of importance to the soil, the way we cultivate the soils, the way we treat the soils, the way we grow the weeds, you know, the grass in the vineyard. We don't use any chemicals. We use manure, you know, compost. We spray with sulfur, dust sulfur, which is okay with organic, and also some preparations. But it's basically everything that we do is very, very natural. We don't, because we believe in order to grow the roots and produce good quality, we need to keep the soil alive. That's why we have a sentence that we use and we put it on the label of living soils. You know, we believe in living soils, and that's part of our philosophy. It's part of our culture as well.
When Veramonte started, the winery itself is in Casablanca. So, right. So that translates literally to White House, correct?
Yes.
So
yes.
What is the climate in Casablanca like? Because at the time Veramonte was there, like Casablanca wasn't very well known as a wine region. So talk us through what Casablanca is like, what somebody can expect if they're there in general.
Sure. Look, the capital of Chile is Santiago, which is located in the center of Chile, and in a straight line from Santiago, which is closer to the Andes, to the coast, we have the main port that is called Valparaíso. So we have the biggest city and the biggest port. In between, closer to the coast, closer to Valparaíso, maybe 30-40 kilometers from Valparaíso, it's a valley and a small town called Casablanca. So the appellation is called Casablanca. The valley is called Casablanca, and it's a cool climate appellation. influenced by the Pacific Ocean. At this part of Chile, we have the influence of the Humboldt current, which is a very cold water current that comes from the south, from the Antarctica, that gets very close to the Chilean coast. That's why the water temperature during the whole year, wintertime and summertime, is very cold. So that means that all the winds that comes from the west towards the east, inland, are very cold and with some humidity as well. So that's why we have a lot of influence from the cold waters of the Pacific. So really similar to what happens when you go to San Francisco, for example.
Okay.
That is, it's very cold, but then if you go to Napa, it's warmer. So we get this. It's not the same, but it would be like similar to Carneros, that kind of places where you can grow easily Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. We also grow some other varietals like Merlot and Syrah, and some other whites like Roussanne, Marsanne, Viognier, Semillon, but more like at a small experimental level. But the main varietals are Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir by far. Those are the varietals that represent Veramonte. And in terms of soils, it's all granitic soils. Granitic soils it's a very old rock that is basically very old and breaks and decomposes. It's yellow, a little bit like dark yellow, with some clay. It depends on if you are in the flat part of the valley or you are more like onto the hills. In our case, we are in the warmer part of Casablanca, in the case of Veramonte vineyards. And in terms of maturity, you have probably 10 to 14 days to get the same maturity from the warmer part to the cooler part of Casablanca. But we are in the warmer part of Casablanca. That means that we pick a little bit earlier than some other wineries or vineyards that have planted here in Casablanca. At the beginning, of course, there were just a few, in the 90s, just a few hectares of vineyards in Casablanca. And at the end of around 2010, 2009, Casablanca appellation had around 6,000 hectares. That's like around 10,000 acres, more or less. But today, that surface dropped probably 20 or 30% due to many reasons. A big reason is climate change. We had a lot of water in the past. Today, we don't have enough rain. So some of the vineyards got old and don't have a lot of water to produce grapes. Everything, and of course, the rainfall was really important in Casablanca at that time and in the past as well. And today we probably will get less than 50% of the rainfall that we used to get at that time. And at the same time, those first vineyards that we planted in Casablanca got a little bit old. And today, vineyards or wineries like Veramonte are in the process of replanting some of those old blocks with better genetic material, better clones, better selections, and different irrigation techniques as well. And the other explanation of this drop in the surface is that at the beginning we didn't understand that grape production or vine production has to be very precise, and we need to take care of the environment. A lot of chemicals, big productions. We didn't care about the soils. We were fertilizing the soils. We were, spraying with chemicals, with herbicides. And today we understand we need to take a different approach. So that's what we do now,
And now, a word from our sponsor. Looking to be in the know about Dracaena wines? Want to be the first to know about our new releases and special offers? All you need to do is sign up for our newsletter. There is no commitment necessary, and I promise you we won't spam your mailbox with loads of messages. Need another reason to sign up? Quite possibly the best reason? You'll immediately get a discount code for 10% off your first purchase and be privy to newsletter-only discounts. Let Dracaena Wines turn your moments into great memories. Visit our website, www.dracaenawines.com, or use the link in show notes to sign up. It will take you less than a minute, but the rewards will last a lifetime. And that brings us back to the statement that's on all of the labels. Everything is the living soils. So you had started to talk about the living soils and the fact that, you work with animals so that you're making the own compost. They're helping to keep the cover crop under control.
Yes.
Can you do it? Because I think it's incredible to watch a vineyard that used to be herbicide, because everybody was like, yes, this is what we're going to do so that we get lots of fruit, versus looking at a vineyard that has what you call living soils, the contrast of what used to look good versus the beautiful green and the beautiful things of these living soils. So
Yes.
can you talk about how Veramonte does what they do to maintain these living soils?
Well, many years ago, as you said, we were spraying and we could see the bare soil and the vines, green and dark, And today we see many colors, many colors. If you see in the I'll try to show the few of the labels,
Yes.
That's one of the labels, a lot of colors. And this is for example, the Sauvignon Blanc label. So that's what we see now. We see diversity, we see colors, we see animals, we see bees, butterflies, grapes, flowers of different colors, blue, yellow, orange, you see life. In the past, we used to see grapes and dying soil, dying soil. Today we see a living soil. The soil has a lot of organic material after all these years, life with worms living, with some, of course, the wildlife came back to the vineyard as well, a lot of birds that help us to control some other disease. And you see life. I think that's the most shocking thing today, and the most beautiful thing is that you see something that is alive, that you're preserving the life of the soil and the environment, and that's the main change, I would say. And of course, you can see also that the addition of these, because we're not allowed to use any chemical fertilization, so everything we do, or basically most of the fertilization that we do is cow manure that is being fermented, and we blend it with some straw, and with all the compost that we produce from the winery, the grapes, the seeds, some of the leaves, we mix everything, we turn it around, we add some water, and once everything is fermented and temperature comes down, we put it back to the vineyards, and we try to, sometimes we put it on top of the soil, and sometimes we do a little bit of incorporation into the soil. And then, of course, you need some water for these nutrients to go down to the roots, and that's how it works. We're looking for balance, balanced vineyard, balanced canopies. In general, in organic viticulture, you don't see huge productions, grapes, in terms of productions per hectare or per acre. But you see probably more taste, more berries, smaller berries, better color, more concentration. I have seen also within the years that the tannin maturity, the grape skin maturity, goes hand to hand with the alcohol and with the acid.
Oh.
So it's not easy to explain, but it works like that. By some reason, the vine is more imbalanced. So when the acid goes down and the sugar goes up, and you have all these flavors at the same time in balance, it's time to pick. Normally, you get lower alcohol level with a good wood maturity. And today we're all consumers and producers and wine lovers are aiming for, in general, for lower alcohol wines, more elegant, less concentration, less oak. And I see in the organic viticulture a good friend, to do that. I think it's a way to go.
And additionally, in terms of around the vineyards, not only are the living soils within the vineyards, but you actually are surrounded by like 2,500 hectares of a native forest and 24 different species of birds. It must be magnificent to see, to go to work every day.
Yes, it is. It is. And of course, everything it's all this diversity that I talk about is present here, and you can see a lot of wildlife in the vineyard as well. A lot of birds, a lot of ducks. We have some a few like endemic species of Chilean ducks that live in our property. I didn't know this, but we had a study a few years ago, but some people from local universities, and they found this. There's some endemic species of ducks that live here, and it's really amazing how they stay here and they reproduce and they survive, and it's really good. And talking about this, we got an email from this morning from a researcher from a local university that he was contacting us because he wants to make a study of the mist that we have every day because we're closer to the ocean, and we have a lot of like morning mist, and he wants to do some studies to kind of catch this water from the mist and put it into this wild forest that we have, So we're as a company, as a winery, we're always open to keep learning and doing things to help the environment, and to bring some more water and biodiversity to our vineyard.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about some of these wines. I have we'll start off with the Sauvignon Blanc. So the Veramonte Sauvignon Blanc, and the labels, as you started to show, these are representative of the living soils that are in the vineyard themselves, and the colors and some of the organisms. But you also have the tag on it that says made with organic grapes. So tell us about Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, Sauvignon Blanc is by far, I would say, it's our flagship variety from Casablanca and from Veramonte as well, in terms of surface, in terms of grapes, in terms of grapes. Yeah. So it's because we're closer to the ocean, and we have this cool climate appellation that helps the Sauvignon Blanc to grow.
If you had, and then I also have Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So again, more beautiful colors, the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So if you had a favorite child, which I hate when people ask this question, but I'm going to ask it. If you had a favorite child, which one would it be?
Oh, Well, that's a difficult question, but I will answer it. It depends. It depends on the day, because some days I prefer Sauvignon Blanc. I would say many years ago, by far my main variety was Sauvignon Blanc. Today, I think I got a little bit tired of Sauvignon Blanc, but I still love it. You know, it's because we have a lot of we make very good Sauvignon Blancs in Chile, and we had a lot of a big coast with a lot of seafood and fish. So a fresh and young Sauvignon Blanc is always good on the table. But you know, Sauvignon Blanc for me is very technical. You can make if you have good grapes, you can make a very good Sauvignon Blanc using the nice techniques. But Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are more challenging.
Okay.
You know, I think if you compare Chardonnay with Sauvignon Blanc, with Chardonnay you can make a much more complex wines in general. Different styles. You can ferment it in stainless steel, fermented in oak, different kinds of oak. I like French oak for the Chardonnay. And you can leave it on the lees or drag it from the lees if you want to have more weight in the palate or not. So by saying that, I think I would prefer Chardonnay over Sauvignon Blanc today. But to me, by far, the most complex and difficult variety in the whole world to grow, to make, and sell is by far Pinot Noir.
It's a fussy grape.
It's always challenging you. It's a variety that in the vineyard, it's very sensible to any stress, sunlight, temperature, heat, wind, soil condition, etc. And in the winery, it's very challenging as well. And you know, the most expensive wines in the world are the Pinot Noirs. I don't know why, but people is paying crazy amount of money by some Burgundy Pinot Noirs today, Romanée Conti, you know, it's more than, I don't know, 15, 20, 30,000 euros per bottle, which I think is it's a little bit crazy today, you know, because for a few dollars you can get a Veramonte Pinot Noir, and it's really nice. So I will stay with the complexity of the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir rather than the technical part of the Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay. Yeah. And so now the Pinot Noir goes with 15% whole cluster maceration and fermentation. So yes. Do you play around with that percentage? Does yes. it vary per vintage?
Yes, that's a good question, because in most of look, we pick all the Pinot Noir is picked by hand and is fermented in these open tanks, specially developed to make Pinot Noir. So you can work the cap, you know, do the punch down or do pump overs, or you can see what's going on from the top. It's all also fermented using natural yeast in Pinot Noir. And we play with different percentages of whole bunch, you know. Probably we go from 10 to 30%, sometimes to 40%. Probably 40% is too much. 20 and 30% is more closer to what I like, and it depends every year, because normally every year in the first fermentation we play with different amounts of whole cluster. Today in the current vintage 2023 we're closer to 25 to 30%. So it changes every year. We don't have a recipe. You have the Pinot Noir 2020 or 2021?
I have the 2020.
At that time, because we started doing this in 2019, around that time, and we have increased a little bit the percentage of whole cluster Pinot in our fermentation. So at that time it was around 15%. Today it's more than 25 to 30%. And why is that? Because we're seeing that by using this technique, we can make some Pinot Noirs that age in a better way, you know, because the stocks add some tannin, add some structure, and also, but it not just like that. Also, the whole berries, when you don't break it, you develop some sort of carbonic maceration inside, so you get a lot of more perfumed Pinot Noir, more elegant, and you can preserve the freshness as well. So
very cool. And then the Chardonnay is a mixture of both neutral oak along with stainless steel.
yes.
And so is that that, you know, so we know that adds some complexity to it.
Yes.
Do you prefer one style to the other? If
well, I love both. In terms of stainless steel, you get the beauty of the varietal. You know, the elegance, salinity, lot of tension. But at the same time, because today this Reserva Chardonnay is around 50% oak fermented, and the other 50% is stainless steel, no oak. You know, but French oak or Chardonnay fermented in barrels, in our case, it gives more weight and more complexity as well, and it makes it a little bit more commercial at this, you know, because at this range, Veramonte, the wines need to be very drinkable, and there are some consumers that like the oak and like the structure, and in our case, we use neutral oak, so you don't get the taste, you don't get the flavor, but you get the texture of the oak in our wines. So we're looking for some easy drinking wines with some complexity, but at a price that is affordable by.
And so the winery itself is located in Casablanca, but you also have vineyards in, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Colchagua?
Colchagua, yes.
Thank you.
It's a difficult word. Colchagua, it's a Mapuche language. You know, it's our ancestors. So it's not easy to pronounce. Anyway, we have two vineyards in Colchagua. One of them is closer to the coast. Colchagua is much warmer than Casablanca. It's by far much warmer than here, but different soils and different conditions. One vineyard that is located in a place difficult name as well. It's called Mar Chihue, closer to the ocean. And then we have a beautiful vineyard that is is a very small appellation that is called Apalta. And from that appellation come some of the best red wines from Chile, with really high-end wines. And we have a vineyard over there as well, in which we produce a lot of Carmener, some Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Malbec, and a little bit of Grenache, you know. But if I have to choose, because I know you're going to ask me this question, one variety from Colchagua and from Apalta, I would say by far is Carmener, by far. We have some very old vines over there. Some of the vines were planted 130 years ago.
Wow.
Very deep roots, always cultivated in the natural way. So today that we are now organic, basically those vineyards were always cultivated in an organic way. with flood irrigation. So we have on the slopes new plantings with drip irrigation, same as Casablanca. But on the lower part, where the old vines are, we use water from the river, and it's some sort of flood irrigation, and that's the secret, or some of the secret, like deep soil irrigation with a lot of water that goes down so the roots can explore. We have seen roots deep as 7 to 8 meters. So in warmer years like this, in big droughts, the vine is able to survive because it has the capacity to absorb all the nutrients of the water from down the sea, compared to drip irrigation. That is basically you're giving the wine the water it needs, but it's like having always, a bottle of water next to you. You don't need. So I think that's I would say the more natural you go in terms of vineyard management, the longer you live, the better wines you produce. And I'm not saying something I'm not discovering nothing, it's just the way things are.
All right. So how can people come to Veramonte? Like, how do they get there? Do you accept visitors, and what can they expect if they arrive?
We are open to tourism more than 25 years ago, so we have a big experience receiving tourists and friends, either in Casablanca and of course in our winery in Apalta as well. Casablanca receives every day. We used to receive more people in the past, before the COVID, but you probably today we receive around 100 people per day.
Wow.
In the winery, individual persons or some tours. We have some. We're closer to the coast, so sometimes we receive some crews from the port that come here. Those are bigger groups. Some people come here and drive by themselves, or they come through an agency. We're open to public 7 days a week, from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. We love visitors, we need them. So it's really part of what we do. In Apalta, it's more, I would say, more upscale, probably a little bit more expensive. Our facilities are smaller, and the wines are very special. So we don't receive big groups normally. It's smaller amounts of groups of people every day, probably 5 to 10 persons per day. But it's really, both places are different, but are really open to experience different things. You can do, of course, you can take the tours or have a little lunch or do a picnic, or you can go trekking or ride your bicycle through the vineyards. So we're really open to public, and it's part of what we do. It's part of our business as well.
And since we're approaching Earth Day, besides opening a bottle of Veramonte and raising a glass to planet Earth, what can people do to celebrate Earth Day? What are some suggestions that you have to celebrate the day?
Well, I guess we need to keep doing things. If you don't do it, but if you care about the environment, keep doing it. Recycle, keep the water, turn off the lights, take public transportation instead of driving your big car to. Many things. I think every decision that we take every day helps to keep the planet alive. And we can't stop. We need to support also wineries like us that care for the environment. Another thing, because a few minutes before we had this conversation, we have and I want to tell you a little bit about this project that we have. Within our property, we have 4 hectares, so around 10 acres of land that we give to local farmers. We have 18 different parcels, 18 different families that grow different plants like strawberry, lettuce, tomato, potatoes, or different flowers, artichokes. They grow this produce in our property. We give the land, we give the water, and we give the electricity. It's in conjunction with the city of Casablanca, and they produce these organic vegetables and fruits, and they sell it in the local market. So me as a Veramonte worker, and everyone in the Casablanca community can come here and buy these products directly from the producers, and that's how also we can help the earth to be alive, to support the local growers, organic growers. Instead of buying your lettuce or your tomatoes from a big shop, you can support the local producers and help them to produce good products without any chemicals. So there are many things that we can do every day.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite things is I always try to go out and plant a little tree. Go find some place that can be happy, where that tree can be happy, and try to do that. But Veramonte is doing so much with the animals that farm for you, that allow you to do the compost, with the natural forest that is around you, and all of the birds and the ducks, which I have to point this out, all of the birds that are on the capsule also. So there's so much dedication to organics and sustainability. The wines are vegan, they're eco-certified. And the other thing that really doesn't have to do with Earth Day, but I know that people will love, is on the labels themselves. They also give you food pairings.
Yes.
The food pairings and that. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing the wines of Veramonte and your time, Gonzalo. And I want to thank you again for being so dedicated to protecting the planet that all of us need to be protecting, that may not only be doing so.
No, you're welcome, Lori. Thanks for your invitation. For me, it's a pleasure to share what we do, our philosophy, and in a special day as the Earth Day. And again, thank you, and keep doing what you do, because we're all part of the same world.
Yes. Yes, we are. And hopefully maybe one day I will get to come visit and see Veramonte in real life, although you may not ever get me to leave the vineyards and the forest. So I can just envision myself lying down in the middle of the vineyards and just watching all of the wildlife and the colors go by. So it looks incredible. And thank you for caring so much about the planet, and for being a forerunner in helping to promote doing positive things for the planet for Earth Day.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I am also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt Buds. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com and sign up for my newsletter at exploringthewineglass.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find me more easily. And most importantly, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Podcast music is Wine by Kevins. Until next week, slancha.
no, never let you go. Oh, oh. No, 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 never let you go. Oh, no, 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 I want a nice glass right now. I'm on keeping for my 10,000 hotel, yo. There is always time for a good glass of wine. No, 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 oh, no, 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 never let you go. Oh, oh. No, 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 never let you go. Oh, oh. I want a nice glass right now.